Yes, you can. They are.
Yeah, we'll work about it.
Okay. I was wondering.
Yes? No? Okay. Want to see if Sean first?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is May 23rd, and this is our Lower Saucon Township Planning Commission meeting.
As the members of the audience can tell, we're a little short-staffed today. We have a quorum, so we're ready to proceed. We've had the fortune of having 4 people here, but the somewhat, I don't want to call it misfortune, but some of whom have not sat so long on the planning commission. So I'm going to be running it a little bit to an extent. So the first thing we normally do is
It may surprise you.
It may surprise me indeed.
I was just checking to make sure you're recording.
Absolutely. Is to do a roll call. So if we could do that, Molly.
Craig Flogi is absent. Chris Nagy is absent. Jennifer Peters?
Here.
Jeffrey Schmill is absent. Tom Bartek?
Here.
Veronica Gress? Here. Sharaf Kaushik?
Here.
So we have a quorum, and that's in the opening remarks, and the next is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if all of you will join me. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we have the opportunity for public comment and citizens. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment? Seeing none, we can move on to our next item, which is the sheet store business item, Roman numeral 4A. Representatives will come forward.
Thank you. Attorney Blake Marles on behalf of the applicant. And you guys know we've got 3 mics here. Last time we were here, we were woefully unprepared because we had people who were sick and we couldn't sit close to one another or talk to one another. But fortunately, since then, there's been a lot of correspondence.
Please turn the microphones on. That one I think is on, but the other 2 don't.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we've had a pretty significant amount of correspondence back and forth between your engineer's office and Mr. Spray. And so we're here to address the questions in his letter and the issues in his letter. The last time we were here, we weren't really prepared with a presentation. I think you got the gist of it by the time the meeting was over. But basically, this is putting a 6,000 square foot sheets on a redevelopment site. The bank is part of a larger shopping center that has not done well. And this is the beginning of its reformation, but it's the leased area. So what Sheets controls is basically a postage stamp on an envelope. The envelope being much bigger than the postage stamp. One of the reasons for coming to a planning commission to begin with is to spitball issues that may impact the community. And I think we at least got started with that last time. The questions that were raised there, we took back, we took a look at them. Most of them relate to the envelope, not to the postage stamp. Some of them relate to the postage stamp, and those are the ones I think that are reflected in the Hanover review letter. So with that relatively short presentation, should we start with a response to Mr. Cucker's letter, or do you want to hear from Mr. Cucker as to the issues that are still outstanding from an engineering standpoint?
I think it would make sense to go through the letter like we would normally do. However, prior to doing so, because we have some newer members of the board, perhaps Brian could just give us a little background on 1 or 2 or 3 of the issues that arose. In particular, one of the issues was with regard to parking. As you may recall, the concern of some of the members of the planning commission was there adequate parking for the Sheets compared to adequate parking for the shopping mall or the shopping center. And Brian, perhaps you can help us with that a little bit.
So before, excuse me, before Jim Young left, there were 3 zoning issues that he researched and communicated to me. And I did put that in this letter. The first of which was to classify the use, which he's done so that we know it fits within the bounds of the zoning ordinance. He took a look at the overall parking calculations of the shopping center and found that there's more spaces on the shopping center than the ordinance even allows, so he was satisfied that the parking spaces for Sheetz are sufficient. There was also a question we talked about last time of the driveway in where the traffic light is. And between some back and forth, as Blake said, between our office and their engineer's office, they have agreed that after the store is open and sometime during the 18-month period after that, they will do a traffic study to determine whether their assumptions of the capacity of that signal and the timing of that signal are adequate and are not negatively affected by the Sheetz store. So they will be doing a follow-up study to confirm their assumptions after the store is open.
And then I think there was a concern also from some of the citizen, or a citizen perhaps, about how it would affect the neighborhood. And so if you could talk about that a little bit and explain to the planning commission what opportunities we have to control traffic from Route 378, and in particular, what opportunities we really don't have to control any traffic from 378.
Yeah, all of that, because 378 is a PennDOT road, they have to deal with PennDOT and ultimately satisfy PennDOT. There's not a lot in that regard that the township can do. I think the concerns raised by the residents at the last time we looked at this was the emergency access to Raiders. And I don't know if you've looked at that any further, Blake or Brian.
We contacted the landlord because that's land that we don't lease, we don't control, and I don't know what follow-up the landlord has done with the township, but we explained, I think clearly explained what the concerns were of the neighbor. Because you recall at the last meeting, it took us a long time to quite figure out what that was in the context of Sheetz. Our people don't get back there, don't go back there. It's not part of our leased area, but we understand the concern, and the landlord indicated that it would follow up. That's, I think, about what we can do.
So if there's anything specific from planning commission members, normally what would happen now is they'd go through the actual letter that Hanover provided and sort of address those issues, so then you have an opportunity to see them comprehensively as to what has happened.
Steve, I just wanted to make mention, apparently there was a May 17th Hanover letter. I didn't get it, so the planning commission, to my knowledge, did not get it.
Okay. We can handle that one of several ways.
Well, the May 17th letter really doesn't raise any new issues that wasn't in the letter for the last planning commission meeting. It's just that they went and satisfied some of the comments in the April letter. So all this is a letter that has removed some of the comments that they actually satisfied. So it doesn't hurt that this didn't get out, because if you read the letter for the last meeting, you're already aware what was in it.
So I have a question about the 18-month traffic study. When does that start? After it is completed?
After the store is open.
Is open? And then is there escrow being held for that?
Yeah, but part of the requirement is that when they do their improvements agreement and post their financial security, that line item to do that traffic study will be one of those items.
And then if traffic study says that intersection needs to be improved, that falls on Sheetz?
Well, any improvements that will be done to that intersection are related to the timing of that signal. I don't think there's any physical improvements that we can even envision. Okay. So there will be, the way the comment is in the letter is that they'll include that as a line item in their cost estimate, including doing the retiming.
Okay.
If that's necessary.
Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. With that, I will turn it over to you if you want to address the
Brian, should we just walk through
the letter and
Sure.
take us through it?
Sure. Now, I am going through the May 17th letter. Again, they are relatively the same, but I'll just go in order.
Could you state your name, please?
Oh, my apologies. My name is Brian Spray. I'm with Civil and Environmental Consultants. I'm the engineer of record for the site plans.
Thank you.
So, this is making some noise. I'm going to move it away. So starting with the subdivision land development comments. The first comment is a direction to the township, just saying that may want to have emergency personnel look. There's nothing for us to respond to on there. Item number 2 is we are asking for a waiver.
The police chief or the fire chief issue a comment memo like they normally would?
Not recently. If we got one with the first submission, that would have been sent out.
Okay, well,
Got one with the first submission.
did, okay, all right, great.
So item number 2, we are requesting a waiver. It's just to allow preliminary plan and final plan to be either reviewed at the same time or a waiver of preliminary plan being complete for projects this size. We feel that is reasonable. Item number 3 is the certificate of insurance. That's just a standard thing for after approval before recording. Copy of DEP sewage planning modules. The township has a complete copy of that. LVPC is signed off. The city of Bethlehem has provided all their information. It's now in your hands. A resolution needs to be signed and then forwarded on to DEP.
Yeah, and that's an item for council. We'll address that with council. There's nothing the planning commission has to do.
Do you need anything from us in order to move that forward with?
I don't know. I have it now, so I'll look at it and I'll let you know if there's anything we need to add to that.
Thank you.
Copy of the water and sewer agreement. We have actually applied. We have paid all of our fees, but I believe they're waiting for the planning modules before they can give us the permit. So there's nothing more for us to do until the planning modules come back. A copy of the agreement for BMPs. We have our MPDES permit now. We've achieved that. And so generally after approval, prior to recording, we go through a whole series of O&M paperwork. There's nothing for us to do now.
If I may, if we have new members of the Planning Commission, the MPDES permit relates to stormwater control, and that's regulated principally by DEP. That process has been complete. They're satisfied with it.
Okay. Item number 7, improvements agreement. This is what we discussed before about providing a cost estimate for building costs and future improvements. And so this is something that generally happens again after approval, prior to recording. We've started on this, but have not presented that to the township yet. Again, waiting, making sure nothing else changes. All signatures and seals. This is just a general comment. My plans are sealed, but when we go into recording, there's lots of other people who have to sign as well. The council must review and approve the treatment. This microphone does not like me, I'm sorry. The council must review and approve any treatment allocation for proposed sanitary sewer connections. Again, we are proposing a singular lateral to an existing private sewer, which then connects to the public system further on, but we're connecting in the shopping center. So this is for council, but we're not doing anything on the public side.
I think we're assuming that the sewer allocation for the center is adequate for this and other things that happen. So I'm not sure we need a new allocation, but as Brian said, that's an issue for council to determine.
Item number 10, open space is required for this development. Again, it's an existing shopping center. We're suggesting a fee in lieu of that the township can use wherever they. Stormwater comments. Any go back to before I move on to stormwater? The item number 1 is just a note indicating the scope of the township engineer's review. Item number 2 is an indication that no earth disturbance can happen until the township approves the plan. Item number 3 is requesting a series of notes that are within the township ordinance be placed on the plan, which will comply. They're just notes. Item number 4, BMP operations and management plan. Again, as I was discussing, after approval, prior to recording, there's some paperwork that needs to be done, and this is what this is referring to. That's all the stormwater. Did you have any questions on stormwater at all? No, okay. Going into zoning. Item number 1, minimum lot area. It's actually on this plan up on the screen right now. We forgot a 0. It says 4,000, it needs to be 40,000. This plan up here shows it's already fixed, but on the conformance set, we'll fix the typo. So item number 2 references to what Brian was discussing earlier about the use of the site and the gas station being appropriate. Item number 3 asks us to use the word site, add the word site to our plan description. And we actually on this plan here, you can see we've done it. It's now a land development site plan versus just a land development plan. Item number 4 asks us to take the letter that we provided and have it signed by PG. And there's some notes that they want us to add to the plan, both of which are fine. They were done by PGs. We have no problem with that. Item number 5 is requesting for a slight adjustment to our lighting design. There's another company who specializes in lighting. They will handle that one. That's a will comply. Traffic, item number 6 is requesting some notes from the traffic study be added to the recorded plan, which is fine. We'll add that to the recording plans. No, it's not on that sheet.
That comment also covers putting the signal retiming study in the cost estimate.
Okay. Which we already discussed, and that is okay. Thank you, Brian. Item number 7. Okay, the second paragraph is the one with the action items. They're requesting some additional signage on our first entrance. So if you're looking at the plan, where we come in at the bottom of the site, that's the main entrance, and you turn up, we have a drive aisle right there. Now the intent of that drive aisle is simply for fuel delivery trucks. So we have stop bar there, we have some do not enter one-way signs. They're requesting additional signage, which are actually added on the plan on your screen at the moment.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this drive aisle in line with the drive aisle that's in front of where Max Fitness is and all that? Is that the same drive aisle?
They are not lined up precisely, and especially since this is a one-way out, that's okay, because we don't want to encourage traffic, people coming from that side going in. The drive aisles here are set up so that they, and I believe Eric gave testimony last month on this one here, but they're set up based off of truck turning needs and safety and other safety regulations. They don't line up perfectly.
Just to be clear, we're talking about this one.
That one right there, right. So we're only coming out there. So they don't line up exactly. They're only off by a little bit. But again, we don't want to encourage traffic to come from the Mass Fitness side to go to our side because it is one way.
Is there a larger site that shows all that? Do you have a larger site plan that shows all that?
All the turning movements?
Yes. Like all the, how your roads are aligned.
There's an overall plan that shows the entire shopping centers, if that's what you're asking.
Right.
Yeah, there's one of those in the plan set, yes.
I didn't see that.
I believe it's on an aerial.
What's this?
This is just the store.
It's a different one, but it doesn't have the proposed, but that's existing, yes.
Oh,
That's the entrance into it.
yeah.
It's in that traffic study. So I thought I might have it.
No, I got you. No, that's just the number of turns or whatever.
I'm just confused of where this road is in line with the existing roads that or the drive aisle that, so it's not gonna cause any confusion or more traffic impact inside the parking area.
I might be able to utilize this if you don't mind. Now, this is just an aerial. This is within the traffic study. This is an aerial of the existing site.
Yep.
And so you've got the bank here, here's the existing
Well, I
aisle
was
that
looking at,
shows up.
no, I'm looking at this one.
Yes, oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes, this line here is in
Is
line with
in
there.
line with that.
We're moving these traffic islands out a little bit.
Gotcha,
So it actually gets a little wider.
gotcha, okay,
The existing one.
I'm fine.
That was very helpful, thank you. Sure.
I have a random question about the traffic. Just with respect to the parking, and is there contemplation that people who would be visiting the Sheets would park on, I guess if you're facing the shopping center on the right-hand side, to get to the Sheets that would be on the left-hand side? Or are you envisioning that people parking would all be able to park on the left-hand side where the center, where your facility will be?
In general, most of the parking is going to be right up against the building. It's their experience at these sites. You know, I'm not going to say that people who are visiting other parts of the shopping center won't also walk over. But in general, the cars park right in and around there, unless they're all full. I believe we shared some aerial photography of similar sites previously, and it shows that most of the time those parking spaces are not completely full.
Thank you.
Can I ask just one question about the drive-through? There's only the one drive-through lane, correct?
Correct.
On the far right there.
Correct. Yeah, the idea is off to the right there's a separate lane that handles some of the stacking as well as where the ordering occurs. And then you go across the drive aisle, and then there's additional room for stacking and the window to pick up your food. Or your order, I should say.
Okay.
So 8 is, again, referring to what Brian discussed earlier about his conversation with Jim Young. Number 9 is, again, is what Brian was referring to earlier. Number 10, sign permits is a separate permit. So we know we're going to have signs here, but it's a separate permit. He's calling it out. We will have to apply for that, and we acknowledge that. Number of ADA spaces. Oh, this was a minor adjustment we had to make to one of our details, which is fine. Yes. To do that. And that's the entire letter.
Brian, do you want to comment before I hop back in at all?
I don't have anything to add. I mean, he went through all the comments, and it looks like they'll take care of everything.
I just wanted to make a comment about the procedure, and Mr. Getsouzian will certainly correct me if I'm wrong, because he always does.
I have said nothing. I have said nothing. I politely sat here and letting you speak.
So the reason why we're requesting the waiver of going through the two-plan process, preliminary and final, is that this is a fully designed plan, so it meets all of the final plan requirements. And the comments that are in Hanover's letter would be the same for the final plan. So if you don't grant that waiver, basically we'll be back to you again with exactly the same plan the month after the council acts on the preliminary plan. So it just seemed to be an efficient way to go through the process. It's entirely up to you. You can make us go through the two-step process, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense. There are several things that will be outstanding when the council acts on the plan, whether it's preliminary or final, even final. Things that are regulated by third parties, like PennDOT, like DEP, they can be conditions of approval because you don't control the timing, we don't control the timing. We do have the NPDES permit already. We don't have the PennDOT permit yet.
And we don't have a PennDOT permit,
Right. So
the planning modules.
That will be later. And the planning modules, you have not yet, the township has not yet approved, so we can't send that to DEP to get that resolved. The agreements that are referenced in the Hanover letter are actually agreements that are prepared by the township, and they occur after the plan approval, because until the plan approval occurs, you don't know what the content of the agreements are. So is that a fair statement of where the process will go?
And what would happen in a different type of plan is you would provide preliminary approval and you'd want them to go through and then change it again. You'd see that more often if you have a bigger subdivision or you have 20 houses or 50 houses or so on. But Mr. Attorney Morales is correct in the sense of there's not a lot to be gained by having them come back twice. And normally we rely on Hanover, and Brian, please correct me if I'm wrong, your position is it's appropriate to have preliminary and final, a recommendation for preliminary and final approval now.
Yeah, because you don't get two bites at the apple anyway. Once they get preliminary plan approval, their layout is approved. You can't come back when they submit a final plan and make them change it.
Right.
So there's really nothing to gain. A preliminary final process is more to the advantage of the developer. If they want to get everything locked in one submission, that's.
Yeah, I'm somewhat okay with that. There's an existing structure there that, you know, you're just replacing. So my only question is, do you have a landscaping plan that, or aren't we not allowed to see it? I'm big on trees, and I don't know what you do with providing shade over all these parking lots. If you do that, if it's something you do or
So
not to do.
we do have a landscaping plan in the set. It wasn't one of the two sheets that for the board up here, but it is in the set. There's a requirement for street trees, and there's a requirement for trees per square footage of additional impervious. Since this is a redevelopment, there's not a whole lot of extra impervious. So we are adding a number of additional trees in the islands along the access road that we were talking about. We're adding some trees in through there. I think we are replacing a tree or two up by the street for the street tree requirement. We are doing, Sheets is doing their own landscaping within their islands. I don't know if you've been to one, but they tend to do a fairly decent job. But we are adding some trees, and there is a plan in there. I just did not bring it for the board.
I have a couple of questions, unless anyone else does. Will there be an outdoor eating section at this particular sheets?
Yeah, in the it's hard to see on that screen, but in the outside the building, there's room for tables and chairs. They generally have some seating out there.
That'll have some sort of shade over it. I'm just curious.
I believe you. No.
Okay. One of the things we talked about at the last.
Some might have an umbrella.
Umbrella.
Like a still umbrella thing.
One of the things we talked about at the last meeting was pedestrian access from the road. I could see a sheets like this, maybe incentivizing people to walk down 378 to, buy a pack of cigarettes or something like that. And I think one of the things we discussed was once you get off the bus stop, there's not a walkway into the parking lot. Was there any consideration given to, facilitating pedestrian access from 378 into the parking lot or to the sheets, just make it a little bit safer for people, especially if they're doing this walk at night?
So there is an existing sidewalk that's there that we do reconnect to our site to maintain that. In general, for a road as busy as 378, we tend not to encourage pedestrian traffic down that. So we're not showing anything additional.
Okay.
On that same note, we talked about at our last meeting, the review letter from Lanta, encouraging access to safe pedestrian walkways, and the bus stop that's currently there, that's really just a sign right on 378. I don't see that illustrated in your plans.
I can.
Yeah, there were several conversations with Lanta as a result of the Planning Commission meeting, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the outcome is Lanta wants to look at this with PennDOT in a bigger context for this whole sector. So this isn't, from their standpoint, this isn't necessarily the location or the time to do that, because right now they have virtually no ridership there. They presume that they could do better with ridership if they did something different. So I think that's probably going to be the subsequent discussion. And I don't know whether it will be with our landlord or at some other location after PennDOT and Lanta complete the discussion.
I can add a little bit more to it. Jessica Stripmatter from Sheets. Yeah. So our traffic engineer did talk to Molly at Lanta several times. A lot of emails were exchanged. I mean, they went back and forth. Like you said, there's a lot of concerns from PennDOT with
putting in that bus stop, also we had some concerns with putting a crosswalk right into our canopy and encouraging pedestrians just to walk straight into where people are pulling in and out of gas. We had a lot of follow-up between the two of them. I know we gave Molly the landlord's phone number to talk about the potential of maybe changing some of the routing. I know we talked about routing into the center, and that's what Blake's saying, there was not enough ridership for that. But she wanted to reach out to them because, like he said, as a whole, they're looking at everything as a whole, more like a master. I don't know if they have a master plan, but something in that context. So we put her in contact with the landlord.
Yeah, I think there were 3 conversations with.
There were several. Yeah.
And is the landlord open to,
No idea.
because I would think there'd be cost associated with that.
Well, they need to redevelop the whole centers. Anybody who sees it knows that. And so I think the nature of the ridership will be determined in large measure by what goes in there. And when something goes in that's going to require a lot more ridership, and we have 2 or 3 employees at a time. So, our employees won't go in and out. The people who use our services or get off the bus aren't going to go to Sheets and get back on the bus. And it just isn't suited to the use. So presumably, by the time the next section of the center develops, Lanta will be further along in those conversations with PennDOT about what to do along 378.
So timing wise, would they, by the time you start construction, would they move that where that sign is currently located? Because right now people are right there would be congregating for the bus.
But I don't know, because right now they're not congregating. I think that was the point that Lanta was making.
Okay.
Maybe they'll take the sign down and not have a stop there. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of ridership there. Like you said, they are in discussions with PennDOT to work something out along other areas through your region,
Yeah.
in some sort of agreement.
So I think the Atlanta bus stop would be for, not because of you, but for how to address the overall development that's currently there and getting people to and from.
Yeah, I mean, if they put a large grocery store in, for example, then that would dictate a different kind of ridership, and they have a lot more employees, many of whom might be bus riders.
Right.
And then they would put that bus stop at a location that's suited for that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's along 376 right into our canopy, if that were
Right.
the case. Like, I don't.
Yeah, my guess
think that's
actually is
necessarily
it would probably be
appropriate.
further south on the road, but we don't know that. That's not our call, unfortunately.
I've got one more question. My understanding is that emergency services have reviewed this plan and approved it. I understand the position you're in with regard to the landlord, and I know the last time we were here, there were a lot of public comments, and I think comments expressed by,
Well, there's one couple that
Well-
made the comments.
well, there was a letter too, but you
Same couple, I think.
oh, was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I thought there was a letter that Ms. Cordero read. Anyway, there were comments regarding the access road. Has emergency services reviewed this application in light of those comments that were made?
I mean, we did not receive anything additional, but it does look, I know a lot of pictures were sent, and it does look like it's more of like an enforcement issue, like the gate needs to be closed if they're worried about access for those emergency vehicles. A lot of it seems like it's like distribution trucks sitting there that could obviously easily be moved if there was an emergency. I'm sure they'd be aware. I don't think geometry changes, I know that's what they wanted, are gonna fix that. It's, accommodating, it need that, and every time we look, that gate is opened. So we did pass that along to like I said, to the landlord, and
Sure.
gave them our feedback on that.
This is the way it lays out. This 378,
Yeah.
here's the entrance, we're way up here.
Right.
It's this driveway.
No, I totally get that.
And that alignment probably can't change because of what's around it. And that's really tight. So
Yeah.
the issue is the gate isn't closed and trucks sit right here.
No, I understand, and you don't want people to use that because then that would cause a traffic jam up at this
Yeah,
end.
yeah,
And
this
then
road's not meant for
right
that.
turn.
Our people certainly wouldn't, under any circumstances.
I guess the worry would be, since that gate's open, will that allow?
I just wanted to provide like follow-up, because I know I asked the question, or we had the question. So, I have met with the fire chief, and for other reasons, but I did discuss this project and asked him, and he had referred to the comment about the fire hydrant. What that was their primary comment, was like to review whether the water services were sufficient to provide for an emergency. But that specific emergency route would be like a different part of the it's part of the overall shopping center. So there's nothing that we can ask this developer to do, because he's like a tenant on a different section of the lot that he's not using. But it is like something, and I think there's like other issues that people have also talked about in general with that we can try to facilitate further discussion with the landlord to see what can be done to make sure that this, we don't have more people trying to access the road. And the emergency access to that section really services other parts of the shopping center, like in the back. So it's really that's the issue. But I want you to know that I did speak with fire, and that's basically what we have right now. So
Let me finish my point
yeah.
before, and I
I'm
wasn't
so
going
sorry.
that direction.
Go ahead.
I wasn't going that direction.
Okay.
The direction I was going was that gate. It's always left open. So when it's open, it will allow others to find the back road into here and cause traffic for those residents that are there. It's not their problem. It's a township. It's a developer problem that owns that development. How do we control that gate? When there's an emergency there, that gate is locked. You gotta have a key, and you gotta have a key right away to open up that gate. So that is something that's on the landlord and in the township fire crew. So that's really, how's that impact those neighbors who are saying they don't want to see all this traffic? That's all.
Yes, and I will.
It is not their problem.
Confirm
It's
with them
something
again.
It is something that will have to be addressed.
Yes. Thank you.
That's all.
Mr. Bartek, I don't want to bog down on something that's not our problem. Where does Oak go? In other words, it's connected to 378, but where does it go on the other end? Where does traffic come from if it's coming up Oak and would access the center and not go to 378?
I don't know.
Not sure either.
Because after the last meeting, I drove in there and I should have kept going because I wanted to see where it was going, but there weren't any cars on it, so I was just curious.
Now, you can turn right, but I don't know where that goes down right, but I can't imagine it's a lot, but I'm just addressing their concern that people can find, rather than try to be the light, and they want to be able to turn there and everyone's, that's just how it goes, but it's not your issue.
Yeah.
So I think if I can summarize the developer's position with regard to the Hanover letter, everything is either something that you will, to the extent you have to respond to it, you're willing to comply with it. The only waiver you're asking for is the preliminary and final approval, or recommendation for preliminary and final approval now, rather than having to come back. And I think, although you alluded to it, you certainly would accept a condition to obtain all third-party approvals. To the extent they're not already outlaid in the Hanover letter, you would be responsible for third-party approvals, and for the members of the planning commission, that would mean PennDOT approvals or other approvals from other authorities or organizations, not us. So I don't want to, is there anything else from the planning commission before we move forward? So anything from the developer before we move forward?
No, thank you.
So if a member of the planning commission was willing, one could make a motion to recommend preliminary and final plan review approval, subject to the Hanover engineering letters, dated April 24, 2024 and May 17, 2024, and subject to all third-party approvals. If somebody was willing to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Now we'd open it up for discussion if anyone from the planning commission wants to discuss further. I'm not suggesting it's necessary, but if you wanted to, we could.
No, I think, what I've seen you guys do on 412, with the new sheets down there, it's very nice and it's laid out. I drove through it and saw the parking and whatnot, although that was a brand new developed site. Here, it's already developed. You're just replacing it, so I'm okay.
I think it'll be nice to have the sheets.
So if there's nothing else, then we would take a vote on it. And I think we roll call them here too, do we not, or do we, in planning commission?
Just do all in favor?
Very well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So the record will reflect it's a 4-0 vote.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you very much.
It's a shame they couldn't use the building that's whatever it is, but
Better than all.
And then the next item on our agenda is the transportation improvement summary that you have received. It's to take a look at. We don't necessarily have to take any official action on it. We certainly can. You can certainly either, we can handle it in your discretion. We can say we've reviewed it. We can pass it on. I don't think we're any time deadlines for this, Molly, correct?
No, don't even have to review it or make comments if there's none. I mean, it's just a draft, I guess they're looking to put together.
okay. I haven't seen it yet.
It was kind of odd, so like, if you look on the agenda, the link I posted on the agenda will take you to what's up on the
Okay.
screen now.
Okay.
I did manage today to get it up and put it into PDF so we could get it up on the screen. I think it was like 48 pages.
Oh, I see.
So there's nothing wrong with, if the planning commission is willing, to simply just take no action on this, and we can just move on, if that's what you want to do.
So let me just, this improvement program, is this for the is a specific area, or is it the overall?
I think it was with the township, wasn't it just the Meadows Road area?
Down by
Because it was
412?
multiple municipalities, I believe.
The 412 Meadow Road area?
And nothing prevents us from putting this on a future agenda too. If you want to take a look at it in the meantime and then say, you know, I do have some comments, or I do have some review, we can put it on a future agenda and discuss it then.
No one from the Lehigh Valley Transportation Commission is here today
Correct.
to receive our comments anyway, right?
Correct. It would be, we'd either send a letter saying, we approve this, we don't approve it, we'd like to see something changed.
Okay.
Engineer, could be Easton maybe, I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's,
If you want to understand how traffic improvements are funded from the state and the federal government, this document, it's an extremely complicated process, and this document helps weed through it, assuming you want to know what that process is.
so this is in collaboration with many municipalities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Lehigh Valley Transportation
Lehigh
Study,
Valley.
which is essentially the decision-making body for traffic improvements in Lehigh and Northampton County.
Something's happening soon in Allen County.
I can provide also some general information that I learned from it. I attended the General Assembly for Lehigh Valley Planning Commission just a couple weeks ago, and they brought out this study, and really was just to highlight some two major projects. One of them was, and I don't even want to say the wrong words, but the 3322 interchange area, the area that's all like mowed grass. They're looking to get funding to improve that whole area and allow for native plants and change the whole look of the area. And so they're going to be having public meetings. It's part of, I think, what's in this packet. It talks about the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission having public meetings that different communities can come to, and they're encouraging municipalities to jump on board and promote it if they like it. They also talked about different corridors. I think for PennDOT, like the Hill to Hill Bridge, 37822 area would be like the closest thing to Lower Saucon. that they're looking to promote. But it's definitely something to look at. I would say I would like, look at the dates on there. I can't remember off the top of my head what they are for the public comment. I think it's toward the beginning of the document. But either way, if the planning commission is so inclined, I think council would be interested to see if you had any recommendation on it, and we can then perhaps participate in the process just by providing our township's comments.
And I just found up on the screen where Lower Saucon Road Bridge, that's where we're named in the document.
So if there's no action to be taken, we can move on to the next agenda if that's the consensus of.
Can we table it for a future meeting?
Absolutely.
If we do have comments?
Absolutely. Do you want to, if you can do it informally, if you like, would you like to make a formal motion to table it, or we can just simply not take any steps today and bring it back whenever necessary?
Just keep in mind, we currently don't have any business for the next meeting, so I don't know when we'll meet again. There's maybe still a little time for something to come in, but I think we're close to the deadline, if not past, I'm not sure, so.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be, for now, we just simply take no action on it, and if necessary, we will at a later date. That's permissible.
Okay.
Then the next item is the approval of the minutes from February 22, 2024. Normally, somebody would make a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
And then,
Is that you? Yeah.
and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? And that is a 4-0 vote. Then we would open it up for public comment, citizens for non-agenda items. Is there anyone here who would like to comment? Obviously, there are none. And then we would make normally there's a motion. If you do it formally, there's a motion to adjourn. So does anyone want to make that motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? And that passes unanimously. And we're done.
You gonna do the hammer? We're in the meeting.
Jordan.
Well done.
Yeah.
So this really,
Wasn't sure
the
how
only
loud that
portion
would
we
be.
have of this traffic.
Yeah,
is
Yeah, that's,
Get that
Well, you have the
bridge
microphone on.
fit.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was
what I
thinking.
figured. I just didn't have a chance to review it.
Yeah, no, it's enormous.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense that you would not review it.
Yeah, I actually forgot that it was on, and I closed